So to be honest, I really didn't want to make this video because I was honestly afraid to find out the answer. But in this video, I am going to go over the New York City neighborhoods with the most rats. Now, rats is a terrible topic of New York City. Nobody likes to talk about it. It's kind of taboo. But at the same time, there are rats everywhere in New York City. Like everywhere. Every borough has them. There's actually only one spot in all of New York City that has no rats, and I will go over it in this video. I'm also specifically only going to go over Manhattan neighborhoods. I'm probably going to make a completely separate video on the other boroughs because if I go through all of them, it's just going to be way too much to talk about. I'm going to end this video with the neighborhood that has the most rats. So stay tuned for that. The first neighborhood I'm going to talk about is the Lower East Side. I would say that the Lower East Side definitely has a lot of rats. And how do I know this? I'm basing all of this information off the rat report that is released by New York City every year. Yes, there is a thing called the rat report, and I will put a link somewhere in like the comments section or like about this video because this is something that you need to see. Basically, what New York City does is that they put the rat bait out, and you've probably seen them. We'll put a picture of what rat bait looks like. Now, they put these out and measure the activity of rats going in and out of this rat bait by if the bait is gone or not. That's how they know if there's rat activity in the neighborhood. If they don't put the bait out in a New York City neighborhood, they probably can't really get a good idea if there's a bunch of rat activity there. So the results of this study could be a little bit skewed because of that. It's always something to think about. However, this is all we have to go off of. So this is the only data that I'm going to use. Now, there is, if you take a look at the map here, there is a lot of rat activity in the Lower East Side. And if you've spent a lot of time in the Lower East Side, especially late at night, you probably know this for yourself because you've seen it. When I used to go out on the Lower East Side, I used to be able to like know exactly which streets were going to have rats going down them at certain times of the night. I'm not going to call out those certain streets in this video, but if you've spent any time there, you can probably call out the same streets that I'm talking about. Now, you have to think about what attracts rats. First off is going to be food sources. All they want is food. They're hungry. At any time there's a lot of restaurants on the streets, especially restaurants that have like the garbage out or scraps out, or just like people are throwing like garbage on the streets or anything like that, there's going to be rats. So the Lower East Side does have a lot of food options in one place, so that could be the reason. Rats are also attracted to like parks, places where they can hide. There is some of that in the Lower East Side. And also, rats typically like waterfront. They like being by the water, and the Lower East Side is by the water. All of these factors could be a reason why the rat population is a little out of control in this neighborhood compared to other neighborhoods. Now, let's get into two other areas on the complete opposite side of Manhattan, both the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side. Now, both of these areas are some of the top locations for rats in Manhattan. And this actually kind of surprised me because I definitely feel like when I spend time in the Upper East Side and Upper West Side, especially the Upper East Side versus the Upper West Side, I definitely feel like I don't see as many rats as I do in the Lower East Side for sure. And maybe that's because I've also spent more time late night in the Lower East Side than the Upper East Side or Upper West Side, but still, I was kind of surprised by that option. If anyone lives in either one of these areas and wants to comment on that, because I know you're probably a lot of comments if you live there, please do, because I love hearing that. But both of these neighborhoods, something to really keep in mind is they're next to Central Park. If you look at the rat map, Central Park is filled with rats. And if you've been in Central Park and really paid attention, you will see it for yourself how many rats are in Central Park. As many rats are in Central Park as many squirrels are in like a suburban park in like anywhere else in America. It's crazy. Like, you're like, oh, it's a squirrel. It's like, no, it's a rat who is like, I guess kind of similar to a squirrel, but no, it's a rat in Central Park. They're all over the place. Both of these neighborhoods are right next to Central Park. So I'm sure the overflow coming from Central Park is spilling out into the neighborhoods. Both of these neighborhoods, also the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side, are also waterfront neighborhoods. So they border Central Park, and then they also border the water on both sides, the East Side and the West Side. Now you also have the water sources as well, and it's kind of a recipe for disaster if you think about it, really. But that could be the reason why there's so many rats in both of these neighborhoods. Before I get to the worst neighborhood for rats in all of Manhattan, I'm going to share with you guys the one neighborhood in Manhattan that has no rats. Like, can you believe it? There's one neighborhood in all of Manhattan that has literally no rat activity whatsoever. And here it is, Roosevelt Island. Now, if you know what Roosevelt Island is, you might think like, okay, Lauren, that's a cop-out answer. Like, of course there's no rats there. I don't really know if like, of course is the right answer. Like, I was kind of thinking about it. And when I saw the fact for the first time, I was like, oh wow, there's no rats there. Like, I didn't think there was a place in Manhattan that had no rats. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, it is an island in Manhattan, so how would the rats really get there? And then I guess it would either be extremely bad, where there would be a bunch of rats there because there's like a whole community of rats there for years, or there would be no rats. That's kind of just like an interesting fact. I guess if you want to hide from rats in Manhattan, you can go live in Roosevelt Island because there are none. So that's good to know, I guess. Now, the neighborhood with the most rats in Manhattan, let's see if you guys can guess it. I'll give you guys a second or two to guess. It's Harlem. Harlem also borders the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side. So is it a little suspicious that all of these neighborhoods bordering each other are the most rat populated? Maybe. Like, I think it's also, Harlem does border the northern part of Central Park as well. That also could be a factor. There's so many that live in Central Park. It's literally like just infested with them. So honestly, like that could be spilling out into Harlem as well. Plus Harlem, there's tons of restaurants, a lot of dining, a lot of good food sources as well. Older buildings in Harlem, that could play a factor as well because they could have been there for years, honestly, trying to hide in and out of the buildings. There's a lot of factors here, but it's actually more South Harlem than the northern parts of Harlem. Again, if you really know Harlem, that's not really a shocker. There you have it. Those are the most rat-infested neighborhoods in Manhattan, and I will do other videos on other boroughs because I do think it's kind of interesting to know. However, I live downtown Manhattan, and I live on the west side. Now, I don't think that the lower west side is infested with rats, but I'm like, I do see my fair share of rats going in and out of different neighborhoods downtown as well, and sometimes it feels like it's like, how could that not be on the list either? I would love for you guys to share your experiences and your thoughts on this research, and let me know also, did you even know that there was like a rat report that existed? As always, I love hearing from you guys. Please feel free to share in the comments.